All right, moving right along, we're tackling the burb zoans today. Ah, yes, the majestic burbs flying around in the sky with their wings and feathers and beaks and eating seeds and laying eggs and whatnot. They're all dinosaurs. That's right. They are, every single bird is a theropod, which means they are actually classified as dinosaurs. Although there's a different category for that in the zoans, which isn't even the dinosaur fruits. It's actually the dragon fruits. It's like a whole thing. But birds are dinosaurs. Confirmed, okay? Kind of weird in that case that we only have 3 members of this devil fruit family, and one of them we're not even going to be discussing today. Marco is special. He has a phoenix. He gets his own devil fruit discussion video. We'll tackle that a little later, all right? So the Tori Tori No Mi. Yeah, we got 2 users. We got Pell, who has the ability to turn into a falcon, which is inarguably like the strongest devil fruit in the entire story in terms of like endurance and defensive capabilities. Dude was able to like tank a nuke. So like, I mean, what else can you really, like, the falcons in One Piece are badass. They should just make an entire fortress out of falcon feathers and like nothing would be able to penetrate it. Screw whatever the hell poneglyphs are made out of. You start making them out of falcon bones. Just indestructible at that point. And then also we have the Tori Tori No Mi model Albatross, which is actually wielded by Morgans, and we've never seen his human form for that reason. He's always in his hybrid form as an albatross. We'll be tackling him later because there's actually something about Morgans I had to do a little bit of research on. But anyway, so yeah, Tori Tori No Mi model Falcon. Pretty cool animal. The peregrine falcon, in fact, can reach the highest speed ever recorded for an animal just by itself. I mean, humans have kind of covered that up because we've invented, like, rocket ships and shit like that. But, you know, until falcons develop some sort of rocketry tech, they can travel the fastest. They basically go all the way up in the sky, and then they dive bomb, and then they can reach speeds over 200 miles per hour. So that just kind of blows every other animal, land, sea, and air, just completely, you know, out of the park when it comes to that. They're very, very fast animals. Also, not a coincidence that Alabasta takes a lot of imagery from ancient Egypt, and the fact that Pell can turn into a falcon. Horus is a falcon, the guardian deity of Alabasta, as well as the guardian and the god of kingship in Egypt, the child of Osiris and Isis, and the mortal enemy of Set. And so, yeah, Horus actually is... I'm not going to go too much onto the backstory of ancient Egypt, although we got to fill this video out somehow. I got to at least bare minimum reach the 10-minute mark, which I don't think I'm going to have a problem doing, but who wants a little bit of Egypt knowledge with teching? Let's talk about it. All right, so Horus is, like, really old in terms of, like, iconography. We have found, like drawings of Horus dating even further back than the first dynasty. Just to give you an idea, Egypt is broken up into a lot of dynasties, like there's over 30 of them before the Romans took over, right? So the first dynasty, when Narmer unified the lands, is like 3150 BC. It's before the pyramids. It was a really long time ago. But there's a thing called Dynasty Zero and like pre-dynastic Egypt that existed before then. You know, eventually you get into the Naquata culture, and before that, the Badarian culture. There were a lot of people living around the Nile River. It wasn't just like all of a sudden the Egyptians showed up and started building pyramids one day. But there were kings that lived before Narmer, and there was a king called the Scorpion King, and I believe in his tomb we found it. It's in Abydos, and we see like a little symbol of a falcon. Whether or not that's like supposed to be Horus, like actually Horus, or just the fact that falcons were really important to those earlier cultures, is well, definitely likely that that's the case. But I like to think it is Horus, and I like to think people have, you know, been worshiping Horus as a bird god for like a really, really long time, right? It's pretty neat, and I love studying Egypt for that reason. Coincidentally, in when it comes to the Egyptians, like back in the day, laying out their history of like where like the culture of Egypt came from and the Nile Valley and everything like that, like their creation myths, the story goes that like the gods created the Nile Valley, and then when the gods left, a group of like demigods took over. This is very common when it comes to like mythology. It usually goes like gods are the ones that build killed everything, then demigods take over, and then eventually humans take over, right? And so those demigods were, I believe, referred to either the cult of Horus or the children of Horus, something like that. Okay, that's all the Egyptology for today. I just wanted to go into it because literally Pell is a falcon, and we see him representative. Like, we saw the burial of Cobra, where we see the inner tomb of Alabasta, where I don't think they have his body, so they're just like laying him to rest in an empty sarcophagi, I guess. But we see Chaka, who represents Anubis, on one side, and then we see Pell, who represents Horus, on the other side, and they have the images of their animals over them. So Oda's very much on the nose with this. Okay, he turns into a giant falcon and he can fly around. Pretty cool. He's really big burb when he goes into his full falcon, big enough that somebody could ride on the back of him like Luffy did. He swooped in with the water tank on his back and he entered his Mizu Luffy form. I mean, Pell can throw a bunch of shit on his wings. I mean, machine guns and blades. He can drop, grenades from the sky. I mean, being able to fly, very advantageous in One Piece. In fact, when Oda was discussing Shiki's devil fruit, the float fruit, he went in to say that he really didn't want to have that many devil fruit abilities that allow you to fly in the One Piece world, because the whole point of the story is sailing around on the water. So if there were a bunch of people that could fly, it sort of like takes away from like the experience of journeying from island to island. I don't think that's really that big of a deal. I mean, if the Straw Hats, like if one of the abilities of the Straw Hats early on was the ability to fly, that might mess things up. Sure, Luffy can fly right now, and I don't know, Chopper might awaken some sort of rumble ball point that allows him to grow wings. I don't know. I mean, Santa's reindeer can fly. Why not Chopper, right? So nowadays, it's not that big of a deal. Robin can make wings. Frankie can fly with his farts. It's not as crazy now. But back in the day, I could see where Oda was coming from. And maybe that's why we don't get that many bird zones, really. So he has one name technique, Tobezume, Flying Talon, where he just kind of swoops in really fast and cuts a bunch of people up with his talons. Very sharp. You don't want to get scratched up. You don't want to piss off a peregrine falcon. I'll tell you what right now. You don't want to piss off an eagle. You don't want to piss off a hawk, and you don't want to piss off a falcon. Right? It'll claw your ass up. All right. What's really funny though is that so Pell is actually like the strongest warrior in Alabasta before like the Straw Hats and Baroque Works showed up. I know it's really not that much, but like, yeah, he is their strongest warrior. Okay, so he is able to kick ass. It's just he didn't really get the opportunity to really showcase it all that much because Miss All Sunday Robin was there and just nullified his ability right away with her Hana no Mi, and some other strong characters showed up. But for a long time, and I guess right now, because there's really nobody else really super strong in Alabasta, he is like their strongest warrior next to Chaka. Okay, so just keep that in mind for Pell. He was number one until like everybody else showed up. Okay, so yeah, now the whole thing with surviving the nuke. Okay, so I've heard a lot of things about this, actually, a lot of explanations on why Oda decided to allow Pell to survive. I've heard things that like originally Pell was supposed to die and Oda changed it because he felt that like that was just too depressing for the end of a story arc. This was the end of like the first, well, I guess not the first saga, it was the second. You have the East Blue saga and then the Alabasta saga, but this was a big story beat. This was a big plot line in One Piece involving Vivi and everything. So maybe Oda at the very end was like, I don't want to kill off Pell. That's kind of ending it on a little bit of a somber note. A lot of other people died in the revolution at Alabasta, but they weren't named characters. Pell was. So whatever. I really think killing off Pell wouldn't have been that big of a deal. He was kind of just introduced in the latter half of Alabasta, and then he would have died saving the place. I don't think anybody would have really been super depressed over that, but that's one explanation I heard. Another one is this was right around the time that 9/11 happened here in the States, so that was another reason, considering there was a plot line with a big bomb that was going to annihilate all of Alubarna, so maybe that's one reason why it was sort of like, oh yeah, Pell was able to survive the nuke, I do always find it funny that Pell lands in the middle of the desert, coincidentally right next to a hospital that's just for some inexplicable reason out in the middle of the desert for no reason, and he just lands at that exact perfect spot. So that's That's kind of funny for me. If you want ever an explanation on like Oda didn't plan that, it's just like, yeah, there was a random hospital in the middle of nowhere and in the middle of the Sahara Desert, and the doctor's in there. He picks up Pell and patches him up. He's got some pretty nasty scars right now from the incident, but considering how big that bomb blast was, I think he did okay. So yeah, I mean, I've heard a bunch of different reasons on why Oda decided to do that, or maybe none of those are true, and maybe that was the plan all the way from the beginning, although I kind of doubt that. I will say, the fact that he is modeled after a Falcon, and we just mentioned the Falcon is capable of reaching speeds dive bombing well over 200 miles per hour, it's possible that he could have survived that. He could have just flown all the way up and then yeeted the bomb as high as he could into the sky and then zipped down as fast as possible. I mean, hey, if any devil fruit would be capable of doing it, the one that has the ability to fly super fast would. Not sure if being able to outfly a nuke really makes any sense, but it's One Piece. It's fine. There is a thing with that, though, where Pell's last words as he was flying up into the sky were like, I am the guardian deity of Alabasta. Like, he was saying that with meaning and purpose. Like, I am the Falcon. I am Horus. I will be the one to save this country. I will be its guiding protector. It would have been really funny if at the end he was like, wait a minute, I could probably just throw this thing and get the fuck out of here. Yeah, let's do that. Woo! Whee! It's just like, wait a minute, I don't want to die. Ah! It's like it just goes, just hear the Falcon screaming as he's like, ah! Trying to escape the bomb blast. He got caught in it a little bit, but he was able to survive. Pell survived. Whatever. He's here. Okay, great. Good job for Pell. So, I don't know if we're ever gonna, see him in action again. Maybe we could, but, yeah, that's Pell. All right, moving on to Morgan's Albatross Zone. All right, so first of all, yes, Morgans likes to stay in this form a lot. In fact, as far back as we've seen him, even in the God Valley flashback we got to see Morgans when he was 15 years old. He's over 50 right now. He is always in his hybrid Albatross zone all the time in that form, right? We have yet to see him in his full Albatross form, and we've yet to see him in his human form, although Oda did confirm he is human. There's an SBS question from 108 talking about this. Now, I want you to pay very close attention to this question and Oda's answer, because he actually doesn't answer the entire question, all right? Hello, Oda. In Chapter 872 of Volume 87, Morgan says, I can't fly. Is Morgans a flightless bird from the mink tribe? Okay, so get this. Oda confirms, well, first of all, that there are no birds in the mink tribe, right? Minks are basically mammals. They are furry animals is what Oda made them off of. So, like, for example, birds are not included, reptiles are not included, amphibians are not included. It's like dogs and sheeps and cats and, deer and things like that, squirrels, goats. Those are, part of the mink tribe, okay? Morgans is a user of the Tori Tori No Mi model Albatross. This is the first time we ever got confirmation what his devil fruit was, who always stays in his human beast hybrid form. I wonder what he looks like as a regular human. So he confirms he's a human. This question asks, hey, he can't fly. Is Morgans a flightless bird? Oda doesn't talk about the fact that he said, I can't fly. He just says he's an albatross and that he always stays in his hybrid form. So this actually comes from a line that he does here at Whole Cake. When Whole Cake Chateau is falling over after the box is opened, he's falling, and Stussy is just like, hey, are you going to be okay? And he says, oh, yeah, I can't fly. All right. This scene has always bothered me, and when else am I going to get the opportunity to talk about it other than now, okay? I think Morgans can fly. There's really no reason why he would be unable to fly. So I wrote down 4 explanations on why he said I can't fly in that one scene. He is falling while using both of his hands, or his wings, or whatever, to hold a Den Den Mushi to take pictures of what's happening. His hands are occupied. His feathers are occupied. He cannot fly, okay? And so he's like, oh shit, yeah, I'm not flapping my wings, so I'm gonna fall. That's the first explanation. He just meant I can't fly in that particular instance, okay? Another reason is I looked into this. So albatrosses are like some of the largest birds on the planet. They have the largest wingspan out of any bird currently extant on the planet Earth, okay? Their wingspans can get as long as over 11 feet, but even at their shortest, they're still like 5.7 feet, which is still like a wingspan that's more than I am tall. I'm only 5'5.5". I'm short as hell. So like 5'7". That's longer than me, okay? So still, very impressive wingspan. However, there's a bit of a trade-off here. Albatrosses cannot get in the air like super quick. It's not like a little sparrow or a little robin or something like that where they can just fly away or whatever, right? There's a lot of prep time that needs to be implemented here. They rely a lot on currents and the wind and things like that, getting a running start, you know, jumping off of cliffs, very much how like planes take off, right? A plane cannot just take off right away. Albatrosses are kind of the same thing. They really rely on the wind and getting a good tailwind and kind of getting a running start and flapping their wings for a while before they finally take off. Once an albatross is in the air, though, oh man, that thing is like a beast. It can stay in the air for a very long time. They're well known for doing their really long journeys, right? Okay, that's like the whole thing, right? So it's hard to take off, but once they're in the air, they're good. So that could be another explanation. Morgans cannot just fly. I mean, he's a giant bird based off of an albatross, right? He's like, oh shit, we're falling. Yeah, there's no way. Like, even if I dropped this Den Den Mushy and started flapping like hell, I'm not going to make it in time, all right? He needs like a whole runway laid out for him in order to really gain speed to get up in the air, okay? So there's that. Another reason why he might have said he can't fly is just because he's fat. He's let himself go, you know? He is kind of pudgy, you know what I mean? So maybe he's just really fat. And he can't fly. If he lost some weight, if he really hit the gym a bit, maybe he could fly, right? And the last reason really isn't a reason. It is like quite literally he just can't fly. But I just don't see any explanation outside. Like, he's an albatross. Albatross can fly. So I think he just meant in that particular instance, in those circumstances, with him falling off a whole cake chateau, he wouldn't be able to just start flying. But given the right circumstances, he certainly could. Okay, so I'm going to go with that. All right, so yeah, never an opportunity to really talk about an albatross beyond that. So we had some albatross facts in the meantime. There you go, right? Okay, yeah. But yeah, Morgans is the head of the World Economic Times, the newspaper of the One Piece world, and he has his little teapot sort of base of operations that's carried by a bunch of news coup, which are the seagulls that carry the newspaper and the mail and all that stuff in the One Piece world. For some reason, it seems like he's able to communicate with the news coup, and they're all his friends. I kind of want to see a flashback with Morgans now, exactly how this works. Like, maybe eating the devil fruit allowed him to communicate with birds, or maybe that's just an ability he's always been able to have or something, and he puts them to work together, making a newspaper that can spread news to all the entire world. And he's been working on this newspaper, by the way, since he was like 11, because we see him when he was 15, but there was a newspaper talking about Harold and his exploits, you know, attacking world government ships like 4 years before that. So Morgans was running, like, he was a business kid from the very beginning. He was like, at the very beginning, he was like, I'm going to use my powers to communicate with seagulls and send them around to start up a small town newspaper, and then eventually goes and starts bribing Cypherpole and shit, and then builds up this entire monopoly on his media empire. He's a smart guy, if nothing else, right? So yeah, that's the Albatross, being able to fly very far distances. And Oda also confirmed there's even a mail service. I need to do a video on the mailing of the One Piece world. I've done videos on trees and ice cream and bakeries and garbage collection, so I guess I can also do a video on how people get their mail in One Piece, because there actually is a in-canon explanation on how they get it, and there's even different services that can provide it. But there's an Albatross delivery, which even sends large packages and stuff to people. So yeah, I'm thinking Morgans can fly. Just certain circumstances need to be required. Also, there was like a whole thing that he was a member of Roger's crew. That doesn't work with the timelines anymore, but it was an interesting theory. Okay, there's also Marco, but he's going to get his own separate video, so you're going to have to wait a minute, Pineapple Man, but we'll get to you. All right, ending the video off, let's just talk about some other burbs that could be Zoans, because like I said, there's only two. We got Falcon and we got Albatross, and I guess Phoenix as well. So I'm just going to throw off some ones off the top of my head. Bird fruit, model owl. Bird fruit, model vulture. We did vulture facts on the channel a while back. Vulture Zoan would go hard. Bird fruit, model crow, or perhaps model raven. Quoth the raven, nevermore. How about bird fruit model pelican? Bird fruit model penguin? I wouldn't be able to fly, and you wouldn't be able to swim, so it would kind of suck, but you're a penguin. It kind of makes up for it. How about bird fruit model robin? You can turn into robin. Just like a little tiny bird. And the most devastating of all, bird fruit model shrike. And don't laugh because it's a tiny little bird. That shrike will mess you up, okay? Yeah. If you know about shrikes, you know. Okay. So anyway, yeah, there you go. They're the bird fruits. Moving right along at a good pace. What's up next? Ooh, the dogs. That's actually great. Oda's way more of a dog person than a cat person. There's like 8 dog zones in this story. So that'll knock out a lot in the next video. Thanks for watching, everybody. This will be Techie 101 signing out. Later. Tweet, tweet.